With a franchise as old as Pokémon, it's only natural for it to evolve with the times. One of the more notable aspects that has changed over time is the way that they design their monsters. Some people might argue that older Pokémon look better than they do now, but I personally don't agree. There's a lot to love with how the monsters are designed these days, but I also don't necessarily think that they're better. It's just different, you know, and it's fun to observe the differences between these two design philosophies. Hi, my name is Thomas, and today I've given myself a bit of a challenge. I'm going to take 3 Pokemon from the latest mainline games and attempt to redesign them as if they were released back in Gen 1, or Gen 2. There's a bit of an overlap between the two. But anyways, we're going to peer into an alternate universe. What if Pokémon Scarlet and Violet were released back in 1996? Let's talk about the tools that I'm using for this video. Pencil, eraser, Tachikawa G-Pen, Tachikawa Jet Black Waterproof Ink, Reeves Watercolor 12 set, Berkeley 6 set, because I use 2 different greens. I've honestly never used G-Pens before, but yeah, this is the first time for me, so I first made a little sketch of my hedgehog character. I think his name is Tim. I haven't fully decided, but I just think it would be funny if it was called Tim and I'm named Tom. Like Tim Tom. I don't know. So yeah, practice using the G-Pen on this, illustration first. And I think I got a handle on how to use it pretty quickly. It's pretty straightforward, it's pretty much just a normal pen, except every now and then you'd have to dip it into the ink. It's a bit medieval to use, honestly, but also fun. And bolstered by how I felt about accomplishing this artwork, I decided to move on to the Pokemon themselves. In order to redesign these Pokemon, I think we first need to understand where their character designs are derived from. Let's start off with Sprigatito. I think that Sprigatito's design is pretty much straightforward. It's a grass-type cat. Its whiskers look like tufts of grass that's sticking out. It has this cravat-looking thing that is in the shape of a leaf, and its tail looks like a leaf as well. And of course, how can you miss the leaf print on Sprigatito's face? I honestly think that out of the 3 starters that we have today, that Sprigatito is the most Gen 1 looking. There's honestly not much that I would change to turn it into a Gen 1 looking Pokemon, apart from the proportions and maybe the shape of the eyes, just little adjustments like that. I came up with Sprigatito's redesign look pretty quickly, I would say. Firstly, I designed everything in digital, just so I have a baseline before I, stick to drawing on paper. I just feel like that drawing on paper is a bit of a commitment. It's a lot harder to erase lines and stuff like that. That's why I like drawing digitally, and then I do the final artworks in traditional. So yeah, this is a pretty standard pose for Sprigatito. It's just, it has its paws up, like it's being cute and all that. Basically, my design philosophy for all these 3 Pokemon is to just kind of simplify everything, like unnecessary details, down to their basics. At the same time, I feel like older Pokemon, classic Pokemon, have a kind of more realistic proportion when it comes to body shape and all that. So one of the things that I did with Sprigatito is make its head smaller. I made a video a while back about dissecting the Sugimori watercolor art style, and in that video I redesigned Mimikyu into Gen 1. So this is kind of a spin-off of that episode. But there's a very different tool that I'm using here that isn't present in that video, which is a G-Pen. A lot of people commented in that previous video that it's not actually a brush pen that Sugimori was using. And so I bought myself a G-Pen, and that's what I'm using here to ink Sprigatito. I changed the way that Sprigatito's eyes looked and made it closer to what Chikorita would look like, where it's circular, but it's flat at the bottom. I just think that a lot of the earlier starter Pokemon look like this, they have the same eye shape. The biggest thing I changed for Sprigatito is its face, actually. Instead of it having a light green face with this dark green print, I kind of inverted the idea, inverted the colors, and extended the print downwards. So now Sprigatito's face is predominantly green with this white divider underneath it, dividing the face into 2 halves. I just think that a lot of cartoon mascots from the 90s have this kind of look, kind of like Tails with a split face sort of deal going on. And so I just channeled that energy into that, if that makes sense. And this is how it looked like. Alright, 1 down, 2 to go. let's move on to our next Pokemon, which is Fuecoco. I think that Fuecoco has an interesting design overall. If I had played these games, Fuecoco would have been the starter I chose. Fuecoco is meant to be a baby crocodile, but he's also meant to be a ghost pepper. I think that as is, Fuecoco already has like really clever design language here. Being a ghost pepper means, you know, his body shape looks like a pepper, but also like the skull thing on his face is what's used to represent like the ghost part of him. But this is also something that might be a reference to Spanish culture, you know, in Day of the Dead or Dia de los Muertos. Its face kind of looks like a skull, which is, you know, important iconography within the Spanish culture. I think it really achieves the ghost pepper kind of concept that they're going for, on top of looking like a cute crocodile. So in terms of redesigning this, I actually went with a couple designs. One is the closest we've got to actual Fuecoco, which is it has the mask, but I simplified some of its details and added like spikes on its back. And then I also simplified the stem on his head. Instead of being like two weird fire square things, I turned it into like a singular stalk. Now it really has the shape of a pepper. The second design is very similar to the first one, the only difference being that I took off the mask. I think honestly that the second design is the most Gen 1 looking thing, but it doesn't really communicate the same ideas that, you know, base Fuecoco or original Fuecoco is trying to achieve. So yeah. The third one is kind of a, you know, a curveball. This one just straight up looks like Cubone. I tried to elevate the skull concept that the original Fuecoco was going for, but I think this is too much and it does look too much like Cubone. In terms of the pose, I came up with a couple ones, but I decided to stick with the first one just because I think it's the most dynamic looking one. So I took the sketch and redrew it on paper. So yeah, there's really not much that I changed with Fuecoco, apart from the eyes, of course. Just like Sprigatito, I made his eyes look more in line with the rest of the starters from Gen 1 and Gen 2. So it's kind of this like half circle thing with a flat bottom and gradient blue eyes. I removed the square on Fuecoco's chest because honestly this was something that was always weird to me with his original design, because it feels like it came out of nowhere and it doesn't really serve a purpose in terms of character design. Little details like this one are the ones that I'm targeting when it comes to redesign. It's like, do we really need this kind of aspect to stick around for a redesign? And my answer would be no, because, you know, it doesn't really even serve anything on Fuecoco. It just feels like a random thing that's tacked onto him. And so yeah. Watercoloring this one is pretty straightforward. A lot of his body is red, so it's pretty easy, pretty fast for me. Add some finishing touches, and there we go. This is how our Fuecoco ended up looking like. Alright, now that we're through with Fuecoco, let's move on to our last Pokemon for today, which is Quaxly. Quaxly is a duck Pokemon. Much like Sprigatito, I think this one's design is pretty straightforward. It's a water type, it's a duck, but the design feature for this Pokemon, I would say, is its big ass hat, as well as its blue feet. Upon doing research, it seems like Quaxly's design is based off of a crested duck, which also has like tufts of hair on its head, as well as a blue-footed booby, which is a duck with blue feet. Honestly, when I first saw this Pokemon, I thought that it would evolve into something like a Donald Duck type Pokemon, like a sailor. Quaxly, I think, is the name of its final evolution. Not the design I was expecting for its final evolution. Quaxly didn't start out as a Pokemon that's humanoid, so I don't know. For Quaxly, I kind of looked up all of the classic duck Pokemon we have, like Psyduck and Farfetch'd, and tried to like merge them into what a Quaxly would look like in Gen 1. So the most obvious thing that I changed here is the beak. Instead of being a simple round thing, I made it more detailed and more similar to what Farfetch'd and Psyduck's beaks look like. For its eyes, I went to something that's basically the same as Farfetch'd. I added more detail to its cravat thing as well, instead of just being one simple swoosh. And the biggest change I made here, obviously, is Quaxly's head. Instead of having this like feather hat on top of its head, I opted to go with like having this weird gel thing on it, kind of like a tentacruel, kind of like how Charmander's tail has fire on its tip. I opted to literally represent water by having water on top of Quaxly's head. And, you know, I made it in the shape of a water drop, which is already what the original design was going for. So yeah, I just kind of pushed the design further into what it was trying to represent and made it literal. I also opted to color Quaxly's feet into orange instead of blue, just because I think it looks better this way, honestly. And yeah, this is how it ended up like. Normally in Render Breakdown, I have a section where I post my art online to see how people, you know, react to them and how people engage with them, see if people like them or not. I think that feedback is an important part of the creative process, and that's why I do this. To be frank with you, I just posted this on Reddit right now and started recording, and so I think it's only been an hour or two, but I think it's promising because we already have 325 upvotes and was posted an hour ago. I don't know if that is fast in terms of like Reddit art posts, because I don't really post on Reddit much, but I think that's a fair amount of people. I've got a bunch of comments as well, and it seems like the general consensus is that people like my art. I posted this one specifically on the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet subreddit thing because I can't post it on the main Pokemon one. One of their rules state that I can't post art during weekends, which is weird to me, but I guess that's fair if you want to have like more discussions. Only text posts on weekends, who knew? Yeah. Finally, here's the three of them together. Let me know what you think about my redesigns. Do you think I did a good job with translating these Pokemon from, you know, Gen 9 into Gen 1 and staying true to their, you know, core design philosophies? Or did you think I did a bad job and there's something that I could improve on? Do you want to see me do more of these like Pokemon redesign videos, maybe from Gen 7 this time to Gen 1, or maybe vice versa? That would be fun. If you want to see me do more of this, then let me know. Then maybe we could do a part 2, just like my other series, which is surprisingly like the most popular video on my channel now, in terms of like how fast it's getting views and the engagements I'm getting. I'm totally surprised. I thought I was gonna do a one-off video with the Nintendo Rivals one, so I don't know. If you like this video, please leave a like, subscribe, whatever, do your thing. Reminder that I also have a Patreon. Thank you to these wonderful Patreons as well. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I guess that's pretty much it, really. Until next time. Ciao.